Hello everyone. I've done a couple of these types of videos in the past, this kind of how I'm prepping for spring, what I'm doing in the garden in this late winter, early spring time frame. But I like doing these videos because they double as a to-do list for myself. As I'm sure many of you can relate, as the season progresses, my gardening to-do list tends to get a little bit out of hand. So when I can sit down before we get into the full swing of things and really make a list and prioritize those tasks, which I absolutely have to get done this season if I get nothing else accomplished, it really helps. So in today's video, I'm sharing the tasks that I have been busy with here in my Midwestern Ohio garden so far this late winter, as well as the things I really want to get done. And I'm aiming for finishing them before that last spring frost date, so about May 10th, May 15th-ish here. But first, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Hisea. Hisea crafts durable footwear for every outdoor venture, from hunting to fishing to farming, and they are my hands-down favorite gardening boots. There are days I wear these boots from sun up to sundown, working in the garden, and my feet stay comfortable and dry all day. Hisea actually has a 100% keep dry and warm guarantee. Their boots are comfort rated from 14 degrees to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are fully waterproof yet breathable, thanks to the mesh lining that wicks moisture and sweat. Shoveling mulch or manure, weeding, watering, or prepping spring garden beds, Hisea boots are up to every task I throw at them. My kids wear theirs wading in the creek, tending to our chickens, playing in the snow and mud. They've even held up to the abuse my boy, who is notorious for destroying shoes and boots, has put them through. And the best part, Hisea offers a 100-year lifetime warranty on their boots. So if your old gardening boots are looking a little worse for the wear, head over to hisea.com and snag yourself a new pair. Be sure to use my code Jenna15 for 15% off all Hisea products. And that code and all the links are in my video description below as well. Now, let's get back to the gardening tasks. Wood chips have pretty much consumed my entire life for the last 2 weeks. I love the chip drop program, but it can be pretty hit or miss here in my area. The last drop I got was several years ago, so I was very excited when a tree company called me up to see if I wanted not 1, not 2, but 4 truckloads of wood chips and logs. I spent an entire day shoveling wheelbarrow loads of wood chips out of the driveway just so my husband could get the truck through when he got home. I've been wanting to expand the landscaping beds around the house, so the first thing I did was use some of the logs to lay out a temporary bed frame and then piled about 6 inches of wood chips in here. I'll let this sit for a couple of years, allowing the chips to break down before planting. Next, the task of mulching all my garden pathways. I don't like wood chips in my actual annual beds. They tend to tie up too much nitrogen, but I do love them for the pathways in my garden. I lay them down thick, get a good 2 years of weed suppression, and over time the wood chips break down. Once they're pretty much fully broken down, I scrape that top layer of composted wood chips and soil back up onto the top of my garden beds. So in my garden right now, I'm leveling up planting beds first, hoeing or shoveling that nice layer of old broken down organic matter back on top of my beds, adding a little elevation to them, and lowering my pathways. And then laying down cardboard and piling the new wood mulch on top. In order to pile more soil and organic matter onto my beds, I have to remove this thick layer of leaf mulch first. If I don't get cover crop planted in the fall, I like to ensure that my beds are covered with mulch to protect the soil. But I don't want to bury all this, so I'm temporarily removing the leaf mulch. Once the beds are leveled up, for some of these beds, I'm actually going to leave the soil exposed. This is going to help my beds dry out and warm up a little faster than if I were to leave that thick layer of leaf mulch on here. These are the beds that I'm going to plant earlier in the season. Some of these beds, you can see I just mulched the sides, not the actual central planting area. Now for my beds, I know I won't be planting right away in the spring. I'm just covering those back up with leaf mulch. Once I have these planted, or once my direct seeded veggies have emerged, I'll use the same leaf mulch to mulch the entire bed all around my crops once again. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but I find that it's worth it, both in terms of improving soil health and future weed suppression. You may see in here also that I've got some beds planted in an overwintered cover crop. This is a mix of rye, winter peas, vetch, and maybe a few other cold hardy things I can't remember. These beds will all be used for warm season crops, and that cover crop will be chopped down about mid-May. Another task, which I've been dreading for several seasons, but I finally got it done. I had a bed full of blackberries here that were intent on taking over the garden. I'm really bad at just sticking plants in wherever I have empty soil without giving much thought to the future. Most blackberries will spread aggressively, which is exactly what one of these varieties did. They were popping up in pathways and neighboring beds and were just kind of making a general nuisance of themselves. Side note, this variety, Heaven Can Wait, is very well behaved with a nice contained habit and no thorns, so she gets to stay here in this bed. With the other variety, I hacked all the canes back, dug up all the multiple starts. I had about 15 really nice starts, but in order to transplant those, I had to find a new planting location. So we scrambled to finish this hugelkultur bed along the east side of the property, which has been about 2 years in the making. I moved a whole bunch of unfinished compost out here and dumped it, and then began the task of shoveling all the dirt back on top. Thankfully, my husband swooped in with the tractor and was able to move a lot of dirt for me, saving me hours of work. I finished up the bed, got the blackberries planted, and now am working on spreading leaf mulch over the whole thing. Tending to the garlic is another task for this time of year. I typically mulch my garlic after planting in the fall with leaf mulch. I like straw too, but leaf mulch is usually what I have on hand. But this time of year, I like to take a minute to pull the mulch back away from my newly sprouting plants. This allows for better air circulation and allows the soil to warm up and dry out a bit more than if I were to leave the mulch in place. When the weather warms up and the rainfall slows down, I'll move the mulch back around my plants to help suppress weeds. I'm also giving these plants a dose of fertilizer right now. Late winter, early spring, whenever your garlic starts to put up new green growth and grow, it's a great time for a dose of food. Pruning my fruit trees and shrubs is something else I'm trying to get done quickly here before it gets too much warmer. Elderberries seem to be very happy growing on this property, so every year I have to keep them in check a little so they don't take over the place. In late winter, I typically come through and hack these all back to a reachable height, thin out dead canes, and stick new cuttings. Side note, elderberries are just about the easiest plants to propagate. If you know anyone with a healthy plant, in late winter, cut off a few canes, pop them in soil, and keep them watered till they take root. If you have a planting area prepped, you can even just stick the canes directly in the soil there. If you see these new little buds showing some growth, that's a great sign. That's a good cane to stick. I typically just pop them in a spare raised bed and transplant them in the fall. I did notice there was a lot more winter kill in my canes this year, which isn't surprising given how much harsher this winter was than the last several. But not to worry, I see lots of new starts popping up. I also pruned back my grapevines as well as starting on the peach trees. I still have to prune the apricots and the apples. This really should have been done a couple of weeks ago before it started to warm up. And of course, as is always the case, my to-do list is so much longer than my done list. Priority number 1 is replacing this garden door. This thing has served me well. My husband made it over 5 years ago from a household door destined for the trash, and my daughter decorated it, but it's not going to make it through another season. I'm really hoping to find another door to hand paint. I'm just waiting to see what pops up at those secondhand sales. My garden gate and garden bench also need repainted. This may actually end up being tasked to the kids. My husband made these and they are solid, but after several seasons, I'm starting to see some wear on this paint job and want to make sure these last me for a good long time. We did get one of these raised beds up front here replaced last spring, but now the other one has to go. My husband built the original beds out of untreated boards, but after 6 seasons, they've had enough. He was able to scavenge these big old hunkin' slabs of wood from a work site as replacements. They should hold up for quite a long while. In order to put the new frame on though, I pretty much have to get everything out of this bed and move some of the soil. Primarily, I want to get these strawberries transplanted. These are some Elan strawberry plants that I started from seed last year. They were supposed to fruit in the first year, but I only got a few berries at the very end of the season. I'm hoping they produce well this spring. So my plan is probably to hold out until after they've fruited to transplant. Another project, but this one's relatively easy. I have long wanted a plant tunnel in my garden, be it hyacinth beans or gourds or pumpkins. There's just something really magical about plant tunnels. So in spite of me telling myself that I do not need any more cattle panel arches in my garden, I'm going to be adding at least 2 more. I love these arches because they're relatively cheap, yet extraordinarily durable. I just drive metal T-posts well into the ground. One good thing about clay soil, these aren't going anywhere. Position a 16-foot cattle panel into the arch between them. This is much easier with 2 people, but doable with 1, just not very gracefully. And fasten the panel to the post with wire or zip ties. I've done loofah gourds, hyacinth beans, runner beans, winter squash, pumpkins, cardinal flowers, morning glories, moonflowers, tomatoes, and cucumbers on these arches. I'd love to hear what else you all would suggest I grow on them. I always like adding amendments to my soil in preparation for spring planting. Most of my beds got a heaping helping of sheep manure last season, so I'm going a little bit lighter on the amendments this spring. I've been saving up rabbit droppings all winter, so I'll be top dressing as many beds as I can with these. Although I love all types of animal manure for the soil, rabbit is especially handy because it's a cold manure and can be applied directly without the risk of burning plants. It's dry and easy to handle and doesn't stink. I typically always amend my beds prior to planting each spring, whether it's with compost, earthworm castings, manure, leaf mold, or some mixture of everything, just depending on what I have on hand. Another task is to finish my hugelkultur beds here in the garden. I've got 1 down and another couple to go. This smaller hugelkultur bed is almost complete. I just need to shovel the soil back on top. I'm slowly working my way down this row, converting the entire length to hugelkultur. This section was completed last year and grew some beautiful watermelons. This section should be ready for spring or summer planting. Here I have just the trench dug. I'll work on filling this in over the season, first with logs, branches, and sticks, then with whatever organic matter I need to get rid of. When I clean out the chicken coop this spring, all of that bedding and manure will go in here. Kitchen waste, basically anything you'd throw in a compost pile. Here in this last section, I'll likely dig the trench later this year and then work on filling it through the fall and winter. Now, this is probably the only project that I'm not very excited to tackle. This was a newer section of the garden that I had looking really nice at one point, but it just kind of got neglected last year and the weeds have taken over. I'm not really happy with having my raspberries in here. It's just too crowded. So at some point, I'll probably transplant them like I did my blackberries to a spot outside the fenced-in garden. I've got a lot of strawberries to transplant from here as well. My original plantings were in this bed, but all the daughters decided they wanted to take over what was supposed to be the walkway in here. Again, I'll probably wait until after they fruit this year. I'm not sure what I ultimately want in this space, but I'm thinking more of a permanent perennial planting versus annual vegetable crops. I'd love to hear your recommendations. I've also got to do some repairs to this fencing, as this was just a temporary fix that has now been here for like 3 years. This whole back space is just too awkward and crowded, so I'm hoping to remedy that somehow. Now, one change that I've instituted, which I'm really liking so far, are my fence plantings. There are a lot of easy to grow perennial herbs that are wonderful for drawing in pollinators and other beneficial insects. However, a lot of them tend to be very aggressive and will kind of overpower less vigorous annual crops. I tried them interplanted in my actual vegetable beds, and that arrangement was just not working very well. So I've transplanted some of them to the outside of my garden fence. Here, I can reap the benefits both of having them in close proximity to my garden and having them outcompete grass and weeds, keeping the bottom of my fence from looking like a weedy mess without having to spray or pull weeds. I can also keep them from spreading through the fence into my garden relatively easily with heavy mulching. So far, I have yarrow, comfrey, mountain mint, and probably a few other things I've forgotten about. I'll continue to work my way down the fence row this season. As it does every season, my to-do list will continue to grow. But like I said at the beginning, if I can just get these things done, I will consider it a win. I'm counting on you guys to help keep me accountable also. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a line in the comments below and let me know what tasks you're tackling in your garden this time of year. And if you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing to my channel, Growfully with Jenna. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.